What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Sarkis Unlocked. Today, the backdrop is a little different. We are sitting in the Beacon, Newton, and we have the great pleasure of having the team that set this building up for a sellout and success. Stay tuned. Welcome to another episode of Sarkis Unlocked, guys. Today we are in the Beacon in Newton, 1114 Beacon Street, a very successful development project. And we have the pleasure of having Steve Vittori. Thanks for being here, Steve.
Appreciate it, George. Thanks for having us on.
Partner and co-founder of Alpine Property Group, the man and the money behind this beautiful building we're in. Linda Zarifi, you don't need an introduction, but CEO and founder of Zarifi Design and one of my favorite designers, not only in the state, but in the world.
I'm beyond honored.
And my partner in crime, my brother Manny, who led the sales team here at the Beacon, which was, not an easy task in the market we were in. And I think that we should just start from the beginning.
Sure.
Steve and I had the first conversation probably. We had a client that we were working on for another project with, and this developer had this project in the ground. Foundation was in. He was putting up a building for rentals. It was going to be a rental building. And I got a call from this developer, and he was like, do you have anyone who might be interested in buying my Newton project? And Manny and I had already been on another condo project in Newton, not too far down the road. And we saw the activity in that building. We saw there were some really good sales in the building, but something was missing.
Sure.
We knew that there was a demand in the building. Because we would host an open house, we would get a lot of showings, and we got all this feedback. So then I called you and I said, there's a demand for condos in Newton. A lot of these empty nesters, people are coming to this other project. Units are too small. So I called and I said, you need to buy this.
Sure.
We started the conversation, and there aren't many comps, right? So when I had called you, Steve, you were like, send me comps. We had the only comps, which is the other project we were on. And then all the other comps were townhomes,
Sure.
Which is not a, direct comp by any means. It's, it's vertical living versus floor through living, like we have here at the Beacon. So, talk to me about your process, your due diligence, and why you actually made the move, aside from
Sure.
The fact that I'm a really good salesman.
Well, it's interesting because, about a decade ago, we started our development company with 2 condos in Newton Center, right? So it was kind of viewed as like a full circle moment for us, where this is now a 34-unit building versus the 2 we did, back in 2016. But, I view the Newton market as somewhat insulated, as opposed to the rest of the market around here that has somewhat softened over the last couple of years with, interest rates being higher, construction costs haven't gone up, but this was a unique one, right? Because I think the location's fantastic. You have Newton Center a mile up the road, and it was kind of a stepping stone for us, right? So
this was your biggest project,
This was our biggest project, right? By a factor of 2x, right? Which
I remember you had called me and you had said, if this doesn't go well, we are.
I said I was going to pack my bags, and Brian and I were going down to the Caribbean. Yeah, absolutely. Thankfully, everything worked out.
Fast forward, it went well.
Yeah, it went well.
And it went well for so many different reasons. I mean, the market wasn't one of the reasons, because this has been, arguably one of the toughest, 4 to 5 year runs we've seen in the last, 30 years probably.
Totally.
In real estate, so many different obstacles we get to deal with, costs, post-COVID costs still lingering, getting, the right people on a construction site, delays, all the above. And when there's no room for error, I would say there are 2 things that need to go right. It's the execution of the construction and making sure that you're doing it in a timely manner, because interest rates, come up, they eat away the profit, as you know. It's the construction being aligned and, being on point with how you anticipated everything. And then it's design. It's really giving people vision and getting them excited. Like, if you can't tell a story and we can't sell a story, then you can't sell anything. You're not setting yourself up for success. So I remember the first meeting, Manny and I had brought in Linda to Needham to Alpine's office. And Manny, you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that first meeting in Needham at the Alpine office when after Steve and Brian put the building under contract, we knew that the goal of this building was to set a new price threshold in Newton.
Yep.
And we identified who the buyer was. I mean, we knew who these buyers were going to be coming from. They were empty nesters coming from larger, 4,000 or 5,000 plus square foot single family homes, and design was going to be a key component. We wanted the design to appeal to the buyers. We wanted it to be move-in ready, and we knew that Linda was the right fit because behind every successful project is the team behind it. It starts with the builder, the architect, and engaging the right designer that's going to appeal to all these buyers.
Yeah, and not just put up. Like, we're fortunate to be able to, see all the inventory that we've seen, or we walk all these homes, whether it's condos in the city of Boston, condos in New York and Manhattan that we see, or just a single family spec house in Newton or Brookline. You got your basic white oak floors.
Yep.
You got your basic Calcutta quartz countertops or a white quartz countertops. It's there's nothing about these units. They're literally designer ready Miami units. 99% of the units are.
Right.
90% of the units you see in the marketplace. Linda, in my opinion, did a fully designed unit. You bring your furniture, your artwork, and you move right in. And we'd like to know how you did that, what your vision was behind it, and because it's different, and the amount of compliments. I mean, the compliments are upstairs. The building's sold out pretty much. We have one unit left. So.
Yeah.
One
That's
unit
great.
left.
And that is for us just the absolute greatest joy to see a building sell out in pre-sale and also, come to a near completion. You guys are giving me far too much credit because
Stop.
of the fact that, but for us really, like you were saying about the team, I never forget the first time I met you guys 10 years ago, I think it was, and you guys showed up to this meeting for a large condo building we were doing, and they had all these sketches on plans, and they, of course, they were show-stopping to say the least. And I saw you both with all your sketches for the plans, and I thought, these guys are crazy. Like, what are they doing? They're designing the building. And, from there, I think that we've worked so closely together. And, it really is so much of our success, I think, is attributed to you guys and the support that you've given us and the people that you've introduced us to and the projects you've brought us in on. And, with the Alpine Group, when you guys come to us and say, hey, we want to do something with you, it's really hard for us to, to turn it down or to ever walk away from an opportunity for such a great collaboration together. When it came to this building.
But sorry, before that, obviously designers, they charge in different ways.
Right.
I think what was super important before we even got to that
Absolutely,
design
sure.
was understanding the developer.
Right.
In the budget he had.
Yeah.
And understanding, because this is really for people also that are looking to hire a designer, right? Different strokes for different folks. Every
Absolutely.
project has a different, profit at the end of it.
Yeah.
Every project has different room within their budget.
Sure.
How did you make them feel comfortable during the? I want to understand,
Sure. The
you
dynamic
guys,
between us, yeah.
you guys negotiating
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
You went and met with them. Manny and I just make an introduction.
Sure.
It's not really our job as the sales and marketing team. We like to say it's not a referral; it's an introduction.
Yeah.
We connect the dots.
The trust was established already
Correct.
between the Sarkis team and Linda. We had done many different projects.
Together.
High-rise buildings, luxury single-family homes. We knew that Linda was trusted with our clients, but then anytime after the introduction we made with Linda and Alpine,
We're not
Yeah.
ready to
between
check.
you
You
guys.
guys are.
And
So
totally.
how did that work?
And so you just talk about the trust that you guys have. It's the same trust that Alpine has with the Sarkis team, right? We've done other projects with
Yep.
you guys, so we value your opinion. You and I talk business all the time,
Yes,
right?
sir.
And you're only as good as the team around you, right? And historically, Alpine Property Group had always designed the finishes ourselves,
Yep.
right? We knew this was going to be a different caliber of product. And we welcomed the introduction to Linda. She came into our office. I'll never forget, the first meeting. We laid the plans out on the table. She hops on the table and is pointing at things.
I remember that.
I'm
A
like,
lot
I
of
love
red
it.
lines,
Right,
a lot
right,
of red
right.
lines.
So,
I either never get invited back or I get invited
no,
back.
like,
After
where do I
how
sign?
much longer after the first meeting did you sign the contract?
It was
it like a day, a
soon
week?
It was,
Yeah.
yeah, it might have been within a week, yeah, right?
Yeah.
We had a little bit of negotiation
I
back
feel
and
like you
forth.
like a little abuse.
I do,
You
I
know?
do, yeah, absolutely. You're a good read.
So the negotiation went back and forth a little bit, but
Yeah.
you guys were the right fit?
Absolutely, and we knew in looking at the floor plans that there was some optimization that could be done. I think the reality is us buying this project with the foundation already in the ground.
Correct.
Yeah.
It creates opportunity, but also constraints, right? The floor plate is the floor plate. The columns, the structural columns aren't moving.
Yep.
The backstory on that is the previous owner, it took him 3 years to get this approved from the city of Newton, right? So Alpine was not part of that process. So you're sort of drinking from the fire hose and understanding what went on for the last 3 years. What do I have to work with, and how can I make it better, right? So enter Linda for that. And we just knew right off the gate that we were all going to click and that it was going to make sense.
And I love that. And then that's when the team was aligned. It was confirmed, stamped, ready to go. We bring you in. I remember we had, after that first initial meeting, we all came to the office.
Right.
And that's when you put on a show that I was even impressed about. Like, I saw this and you started talking about the history of Newton.
That's right.
And
Good memory.
how did you come up with
Absolutely.
the perfection and the masterpiece you've built here?
So,
You helped design here.
what you were saying earlier is so important. When you look at the condo market, what you see is so much, an abundance of white, and everything almost looks the same. But really, these people are coming in here and they're living their lives here and they're moving in and they're having experiences and moments. And what we've seen in all of the buildings we've done is that when there's something that really stands out in the market, that's when it does well. And you really need every single factor has to go right to have a standout product, from the sales team to the developers, to the floor plan, to the design. And we often find that having a story to your building really helps. For us, having buildings that have gone up in New York and Miami and, also in the city of Boston, Newton was really interesting because we did a deep dive into the history and found out that it was the original getaway for the Bostonians back in the 1700s.
I didn't even know that when you brought
I
that
didn't
into
know
the
that either.
office. I was
Yeah.
like, what?
It was really, so this was their country home. It was their Hamptons, essentially. So they would retreat to the country, and this is where they had acres of sprawling land, and they had this beautiful country living. And for us, we really wanted to kind of channel this softer vibe. A lot of our work is so contemporary. The market demands that it is that. Here we were able to just take everything down a little bit and go a little softer. We were able to work in some natural hues, like you'll see the baby blue that we have in the bathroom tiles.
Yep.
We were able to go a little bit more, a little bit funkier with some checker
powder room.
tile in the powder room.
Yep.
And we also the finishes got warmer. Everything had one of the great things is the bones of what we were working with was so great. You'll see on our third floor, we have, vaulted ceilings.
Yeah.
All of our ceiling heights are really, are all 9 feet and higher.
Yeah, 9
we
feet,
have,
6 inches.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, this is why you're so good. And we just really had good bones that we were working with, and we were able to really craft this very bespoke story that helped the building stand out amongst the competitors.
And once again, when you do this,
Yes.
and when you come up with, the baby blue tile, and there's a little green in there too as well, I believe.
It's like an aqua tone.
Yeah,
Yeah, in the second bathroom.
green's my favorite color, if you guys couldn't tell. But you have to, it's a risk. It is a little risk too. Now you did your homework, you did your research, you knew the history, and it's a risk for most people, right? So most people in some of the homes Mandy and I see every day, they're trying to be different, but when they're different, they're not doing it with due diligence.
Sure,
They're
absolutely.
like, I saw this really cool tile, at the Faena Hotel in Miami. Fortunately, we're not in Miami.
Right.
Right.
This is Newton, this is Massachusetts. The people here are a bit different, a little more, low key, I would say. But you were disruptive. I think you are you are the best, in my opinion, at being disruptive in a way that you're going to add value. And you're being disruptive because you're doing something that not many people want to do, which in my opinion is because it takes more time,
Right.
it's more work, it's more due diligence, it's more research, and the higher the risk, the higher the reward,
Right.
which definitely showed in this project.
Yeah.
Now, were there any times throughout this design process that you were like, I should go back to white? Should we just white this out? Is this going to maybe draw a buyer away? Is it maybe going to have a negative impact? Like, how does that work? Because you're not all that neutral up there.
Sure. Yeah,
How
for
does
sure.
that play a role?
You know, that's a really good question. I would say that, thinking about this as as being a disruptor is actually a huge compliment, because so much of what our team does is edit down. So we actually see, the one thing that we do is we're always looking. We are constantly seeing what's the latest and greatest in design. And one of the things that we're always asking is, where's design headed in the next 10 years? As you know, when we start a project, it doesn't come to market for a number of years. So we have to always be forward thinking. What is going to date? What is going to stay relevant? What are people going to want? What's going to feel 2026, 3 years from now? So it's a constant editing process that really is just the culmination of 20 years of looking and seeing and doing and touching and feeling. As for the risk taking, one thing I've noticed, and you guys can probably attest to this as well, is that as long as the bones are good, you can take those risks. Like as long as the actual structure works, the risks can be taken without really truly offending someone. What are the offensive non-negotiables? Those are, small bedrooms. Those are a living space that doesn't have good views.
So floor
Those
plans.
are-
Ideal floor plans.
So
Ideal
ideal floor
floor
plans,
plans.
which is
Absolutely.
another thing when you came in, like we looked at the floor plans, a lot of them were created. Steve, you've looked at thousands of floor
Yeah.
plans. You were buying the floor plans essentially.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
when you had it, you were buying the floor plans, and we had the architect come in to that second meeting. What were some major changes that the both of you
Yeah.
made
A lot of changes.
to
Yeah.
like what would give us an example of what's
so-
important once again for a developer
Sure.
who's getting started, guys.
Absolutely.
We don't need all your secrets. Even if people wanted, they could not duplicate what the both
No,
of you
we're
do.
happy to share.
But I know Manny gave feedback because
Yeah.
Manny had sold 2 or 3 of Steve's projects before.
Yep.
Manny and I have been on 10 projects in different areas, but I think it comes down to we tried to identify which projects of those had the same buyer type, and the same target buyer. But what are some of those changes that were important?
Sure.
That maybe even some that you guys disagreed on, or
Yeah.
some that were not so cost
Yeah.
effective?
I'll give you my vantage point, right, from the developer perspective. Coming in, we knew those floor plans. There was something like 18, was
Yeah,
it even
there
more
was a lot.
typologies?
Yeah.
Right? So Linda
There was
right off-
18?
There was a
different
lot.
type of
Wow.
Which is
typologies,
a
yeah.
problem.
Yeah,
Wow, yeah.
a lot. So right
Makes
off,
it harder to sell too.
totally,
Absolutely,
right?
for sure.
And it complicates the entire process, right? So we have, at any given time, we had 20, 25 different subcontractors working on this site. But, right off the rip, Linda was like, let's narrow down the typologies, right?
Yep.
So that was, I think, the first thing that
Right,
we
that is.
tackled, so that we could have a more streamlined product. But zooming out a little bit, I think about when we first started this dialogue in the Needham office, and then kind of going with Ed and the team at your guys' office. I'm not selling a single family, right? I wanted a design that was different and refreshing, but not too far out on the spectrum, right? And when Linda came into the office that day and to you guys' office, she nailed it. I remember looking over at Brian and being like, we've already got our money's worth, right? I never told you that, but that's what we thought.
Contact us.
Right?
Make sure you charge them more the next
Yeah,
time.
and all she did at that point was show us the palettes, the vision, and the story of the beacon, and the narrowed down typologies, which was immensely helpful because, a plumber doing MEPs for 20 different typologies, all of those challenges further complicate the time of construction, costs, all of that. So she nailed it right out of the gate. But I'm always thinking, like in a project like this, we have to sell this 34 different times, right? So we need 34 buyers that think the look,
Right.
feel, and finish is a hit.
Yep.
And obviously 95% sold. we got it.
We got one left.
One left, right. So that was kind of what my thinking was early on in the project. I know my business partner, Brian, same mindset. Him and I are typically aligned on the way we go to market. And we kind of passed our thoughts over to Linda, and she made it a reality.
Yeah, I mean, you guys were, it's always such an honor to work with people who share a similar vision. And I think that all of us were aligned. I think all of us knew the challenges ahead of us. I think all of us knew where we wanted to be and where we were headed. And one of the important things, and I think we can all attest to this, is that, we're not selling 8,000 square feet. We're not selling 5,000 square feet. When you're in the condo market, every square foot counts. And I think that was the big thing that we were trying to do. Like, we actually put ourselves in these units and wonder, where are you putting a pot and pan? If you have a grandchild coming over, where are they going to sleep? If they're a baby, if you need to work, can you reposition this giant master closet to be like an office outside of your bedroom? So really I think that the greatest challenge to the floor plans was really re-looking at them and figuring out how to use every square foot to its greatest potential.
Totally.
Yeah, the dens were a huge hit.
That was one of the things that, the dens were great, and those were all huge dens. And
That's the perfect transition to how Manny said it. Manny had said in one of the meetings, he said, a downsized life, because we were dealing with empty nesters downsizing. Manny said this, and he hit it right on the button. He said, a downsized life does not have to mean a downgraded life.
Right.
Totally.
And that's what we did. And Manny, once again, lived in Newton, knows Newton, knows the market in Newton, sells homes, condos, was selling the other condo project I mentioned, and he knew what was missing.
Right.
We knew lack of inventory.
Yep.
There was no comp. There were no comps. There wasn't even competition.
Right.
If anything, we set the market.
Yep.
But when Manny said that, he mentioned luxury without maintenance. Manny, we started the sales project. You led this building. You were here from day one, and you saw some of the struggles. You saw the momentum build. What are some of the non-negotiables that you think made this building a key success?
It was very important when we identified who the buyer was. I mean, we knew it was going to be an elevator building. We kind of streamlined what the amenities were going to be in the building that the buyers would actually use. We wanted to make sure the gym was big enough for the buyers. We wanted to make sure that there was extra storage for the buyers, garage parking. So we checked off kind of the must-haves of that downsizer buyer. And then along the process, when you launch these buildings, the number one thing that's the most important is the momentum. If you come out and the buyers buy into your product, the Newton community buys into your product, when you come out the gates putting units under contract, then it only makes our job easier down the line. So during the process from the beginning, I feel like the team stayed in their lane, and we all focused on what was very important. In regards to the feedback we gave each other, we made the changes we need. Even some of the changes were made while the building was framed.
Right.
Linda would give feedback on the floor plans. We'd go back and forth. We'd change some of the floor plans as needed, but it enabled us to just continue with the momentum as the sales process went along.
No, that makes the most sense.
And you just touched on something that it just reminded me. So, fun fact, this building, previous owner was originally going to do it as apartments, right?
Yeah.
So we immediately identified, exactly to your point, who's going to be our buyer,
Yep.
right? And let's convert this into condominiums. It was actually one of our conditions
Yeah.
to close with him, like
Correct.
do the conversion with the city.
From rental to condo, yeah.
To
I remember
condos,
that,
right?
yeah.
But that involved a lot more than just passing paper with the
Right.
city. We inherited plans that had one centralized HVAC system for the whole building, right? So that had to go. So MEPs had to get redone. There was a lot of other logistical pieces that we closed
So
on.
can you explain that though, Steve? So
Totally.
you're in a rental building.
Yep.
So suppose the beacon is duplicated next door and it's a rental building.
Yep.
It's not condos.
What's different?
What's the difference
Sure.
with the HVAC having to be changed?
Totally. So in a rental
Now
building.
I know, but other people may not know.
Totally.
So,
It's a great question.
what's the difference?
Yeah, so a centralized HVAC system, right? When you have people that are renting units, they're not staying forever, right? So they're paying utilities. There's also a different fit and finish for the building. You have to build an apartment building with the understanding that when units turn over, there could be damage.
Right.
You might need to rip up flooring.
Yep.
And we'll talk probably a little bit more about it later, but there's a different mindset when
For sure.
the unit that you're in is something that you own,
Correct.
right? There's a sense of pride and ownership and community, and we'll talk
Condo
more about
finishes
that.
versus apartment
Absolutely.
finishes.
For sure.
So-
and that's why they ask about owner occupancy when you're buying in a condo building.
Right.
Who's owning, who's renting. That's why it's
Absolutely.
important to a lender who's financing an owner occupied unit. Like that's always, is it above 50% owner occupied?
Yep. Yeah. And you know, our business, our focus majority of the time is doing condominium buildings, right? It's been a successful, you know, venture for us, and we've got very comfortable in that space. So we knew right out of the gate that's where we want to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the condo product, I in my opinion, I believe that a lot of condo projects that I've seen and I've even been a part of have been rental quality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think they've been rental quality. I think that Linda did a great job, you know, making this feel luxury because once again, we knew who the buyer was and they were an empty nester leaving a 5,000 square foot house, a 5,000 plus square foot. Some of these people left a 10,000 square foot
Right.
house.
Absolutely.
So,
And
I
you-
know Manny knew that challenge.
And that's exactly right. Like if you think about downsizing, historically there's a negative connotation with that,
Sure.
right? We all collectively needed to reframe that as a lifestyle upgrade, right? Gone is the maintenance. You have a secure parking garage underneath the building. You know, you basically have a lock your door and leave type of mentality here where all of the, I guess, ancillary things that in a 10,000 square foot house you have to constantly worry about, that goes away.
Yeah, I think if we rewind to one of the most important things that were a part of the success and where Linda provided a lot of the value were the renderings in the beginning of the project.
Oh yeah.
You know, again, we were 75% sold before we even had our certificate of occupancy. We were, you know, a testament to you, Steve. You guys always had the site clean. You guys knew Friday, weekend came, even when the building was just framed, Saturday, Sunday was the day to show the building.
Absolutely.
You let your team know, as busy as you guys are, as many different tradesmen are working, end of the day, Friday, we need the building ready so Manny, Roy, and the Sarkis team can bring the buyers through. So when we
You could eat off the floor.
Yeah, so when we were bringing buyers through, what were we selling off of? We were selling off of floor. The renderings attracted them to the build. The renderings, the floor plans, the website. We had everything laid out to the buyers on the website. We brought them to the building. They could walk, feel the space. They could see what they were looking out at. But they were also had to have trust in the renderings that Linda's team provided. And all the buyers came back to us and told us the renderings and all the specs are what you delivered. So that was super important.
That's not always the case.
No,
Correct.
for sure.
Yeah, that was, I think the only, you know, and this is, you know, I like that you guys cared so much. I think the only time I ever got a panicked call from Steve ever in an entire year of working together was one time he called me and he said, you know, the master shower tile doesn't look like the rendering. And I said, Steve, it's an iridescent finish. I can't, you know, they can't render metallic. Like this is what it is. And he's like, are you sure?
There was
I
one
said,
buyer
"Yes."
who wanted to change it, and Steve changed it.
AI might be able to do that.
Yes,
now, though,
exactly.
so
The future of
it's-
rendering.
So
No.
yeah, I mean, listen, the product was delivered,
Yeah.
as Mandy said, exactly how we marketed it. You know, sometimes you see projects where, you know, the renderings,
Yeah.
especially with all technology these days, AI
Totally.
and everything else. But this was, I thought personally that the finished product was better
Yeah. And
than
that's,
the renderings.
Definitely.
and that's
And that was the
Literally.
feedback from
Yeah,
that
that's
was the
great.
feedback
Agreed.
that when buyers saw the finished product and they stepped into their unit, they were just so satisfied
Yeah,
with the
absolutely.
finished.
And that's really a developer thing, right? Like that's really, you know, there's, you know, this is always a marathon of passing on the baton, right? We get everything you guys tell us, we digest it, we turn it into a design, we turn it over to
Yep.
developers, and then it's really on them to execute. And I think,
agree.
you know, and you know, you know, Steve and Brian were great, and Steve was here. You know, there was never a time I showed up where you weren't, you know, here doing something.
Sure.
Like whatever needed
Yeah.
to be done. There was not any value engineering. They built everything exactly according to spec.
That sounds easier said than done, though.
It
In
does.
regards to
Absolutely.
saying how not every developer, not every designer, and not every sales team can kind of work together hand in
Right.
hand
Right.
to do what we did here. And we were able to come together and listen, we gave each other feedback throughout the
Of course,
process.
yeah.
That was the
Right.
most important thing. We were receptive to each other's
I
feedback.
agree. That's the only way
Absolutely.
to, that's the only way to succeed.
Yeah.
in
And
my
when you're in
opinion.
the beginning of these buildings, when you're in the trenches, when you potentially, fall a little behind schedule, you always communicated that.
Yeah.
You let us know, there could be a delay this week. I will keep you posted. You were giving us weekly updates. This is what was done this week. This is what's moving forward in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So I think it's just very important it sounds like it was such an easy step-by-step process. To the end user, yeah. To potential developers, yes. But I think the most important thing was that we just worked together.
And that's why
You should
your
ask
guys,
my therapist if she feels the same way.
and that's why, listen, you've done, you've had 10 plus successful projects,
Sure.
Steve. That's why reputation and references matter. See, now a lot of developers, they want to be, they like to gamble with time. They want to assume that Eversource is going to come and pass and get you guys gas or get you guys electric. National Grid or whoever we're relying on is going to come and tie something into the building to get the final, electrical or gas signed off on, plumbing. But you were, as Manny said, always ahead of it. You were communicating. And that communication, we're in real estate. We're dealing with, this isn't a commercial building. This isn't businesses. This is where people put their head on their pillow and go to
Yeah.
bed at night. This is their life.
Absolutely.
And these people, this is, it's the most important purchase in anyone's life. And sometimes people only make one or two of them.
Right.
And you have these buyers that Manny and I had to deal with leaving the big house. They already sold their home. You communicating that allowed us to buy them an extension on their current home that they were selling, not, putting us in a position, because we need the buyers to be happy. You can make all the money in the world. And I know you, Steve, and what you're really looking to accomplish and the way you do business, and you want to do another 50 projects. You're not doing this and, calling it a day.
Correct.
So your reputation is going to cost you money at times, and you know that if you want those references, you're going to put your money where your mouth is and deliver what you said you would deliver.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where Alpine has really excelled. That's why, you guys took a chance on this one. Not many people even wanted to.
Right.
And
Yeah, well, the developers passed this
a
building.
lot of them passed on it, but they didn't have me selling them on it. But that being said, Manny, in a shifting market,
Yeah.
how did we maintain leverage? How did we build momentum from the start and really make sure that we didn't put ourselves in a position where we had to discount units?
For sure.
Or, because we didn't really negotiate here, right?
No, no, not one unit.
Financing, not many financing contingencies. Talk about the buyer process. A buyer walked in, like how it was a domino effect on getting more buyers through.
Yeah.
You were boots on the ground more than I was, so explain that process and how it all happened.
I think in the beginning process, pricing a building out is one of the most important things.
He's the numbers guy, by the way.
So you want to I remember when we first came with the team, Steve, you and Brian, you guys were very set on, let's set the pricing and let's stick to the pricing and not negotiate it.
Right.
In these buildings, if a certain amount of buyers buy in the beginning and then you go through a slump and you have to discount the units, unfortunately, you're losing the trust of the buyers who invested in the building.
Absolutely.
In the beginning
they
stages.
get killed.
So when we came in during the beginning stages and we walked through the floor plans, we see what every unit was looking out at first floor versus second floor versus third floor? How much do we change the price on every unit? We went back a few times, and then we established the firm pricing at the Beacon. From day one, the first unit we put under contract to we've put 33 out of 34 under contract. We have one left. We did not negotiate any pricing, and we did not change pricing. So all the buyers are confident in their investment. And I think that was very important that they saw the process of the first unit to the last one all close at the same price.
And then talking about that, you know, we see all the time, even on projects I've sold, being boots on the ground at the Parker, being boots on the ground for any single family I'm selling. We see the renderings on the market all the time. You know, they're marketing on MLS, on websites, the beautiful renderings, and you then go to the site, and sometimes there's not even a shovel in the ground yet. You know,
Right.
so it's like they're trying to get a pre-sale, they're trying to get something to do a custom. Like Manny and Roy, we can't forget about Roy. Shout out to
Yeah,
Roy.
Roy's great.
Yeah.
Roy
we love Roy.
Big
Roy
shout
was-
out to Roy.
big shout out to Roy. Roy, listen, there's no iron team, guys. Bottom line.
Yep,
So like
100%.
our team is awesome, from our marketing team, back of the house, to Chris helping out. Like once again, this was such it was a big group win in my opinion.
Correct.
But when you and Roy were coming on site, you were doing videos. You were showing people, and kind of giving them these updates. We had all these buyers that were interacting, signing up on the website. What's one thing you continue to do? Because you want to build confidence with the buyer and let them know the developer isn't dragging his feet because finances. Yeah. We've seen a lot of people go belly up in the last 5 years. Developers have to, lose the project to the lenders. They don't have enough money to finish. And if they do finish, they're cutting as many corners as possible.
Right.
So I think you and Roy and the marketing team did an unbelievable job continuing to show people the progress and explain what you did, some of the videos you did, because I think that was huge.
I think that was the most important thing when it comes to some buyers don't have the vision and they don't know what the step-by-step approach is in step-by-step processes in construction. So anytime Roy or I were coming to the building, we were taking videos of the framing. We did a video on the MEPs were signed off on, when the building was being insulated, when certain inspections passed. That was not only for prospective buyers.
Big milestones, obviously.
But that was also for buyers who were under contract.
Right.
To kind of give them an update. Hi, just so you know, this
course.
is where we stand in construction. This has been done. And they loved the feedback that we continued to give them because they always knew that the building was moving forward in the right direction. I just think it's an important aspect of construction.
And
just because not all buyers are educated.
Right.
A lot of buyers, and it's very easy to sell the shiny finished product.
Right.
Of course.
But you need to educate the buyers and kind of show them what's happening behind the scenes. And one of the most important things that we would always tell all the buyers, Alpine is so proud and confident in the builds that they do. They invite you when the walls are open.
Sure.
You can see everything from when the walls are open to when the walls are sealed and you have the finished product. So that was very important when they were walking through during those early stages. And we also communicated that to the outside world.
Right. And kind of taking that even a step further, we did something we've never done here before, which is manage the property after we're done, right? We typically, and this is something, I don't care if you've been doing development for 3 years or 30 years.
If you want to get the hell out.
There's no two projects that are the same, right? So everything's a learning experience. And, what we've seen in our previous projects is, okay, we finish a building, we turn it over to property management, and here's the little secret of new construction.
This was a huge selling point.
The building's not perfect, right? No one's lived in these units, so there's little things that are going to be tweaked, and as people live in them, they're going to call us for punch list stuff,
Correct.
new punch list items. So what we've seen is, okay, rather than us putting a property management company as a insulation point between us and our buyers, let's manage the building ourselves, right? So my brother has
Shout out
done
to
a
your brother.
fantastic job.
Shout out, Brian.
He's here every day. And
He's in the building right now.
Yeah, he's built a good rapport with the residents. But, that model works for us. And we're going to duplicate that going forward with new projects because we're not of the mindset, build the building, move on to the next and forget about it.
And
It's,
can
you know,
I tell-
this is our brand.
It's a real commitment.
When we were selling the story of, when buyers would ask, what are my utility bills? What's included in what am I going to pay for my utility bills? What's included in my condo fee? Who's the management company? I love when they would ask who the management
best.
company was. Just, well, actually the developer's going to manage the building and he's going to be on site.
And that is a
just
very rare
shows
thing.
Totally.
how confident you are and how much you stand behind your product.
Yeah.
And I mean, you
It's-
guys are still with that. We saw a buyer walk through earlier. You guys have just kind of delivered on everything you told the buyers you guys would deliver on.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly very rewarding to walk through this building and see the residents and have them provide positive feedback and say that their first 4 or 5 months has been fantastic.
Yep. It makes you
yeah.
feel great about it. Really makes you feel great. And it's just fulfilling. It's like, once again, we're all in the business to make money, right? But sometimes that one little compliment is worth way more than the big check you get. Your work means something to other people, you know? And I think that's a testament to who you guys are. Linda, you've worked on some iconic projects, amazing buildings, single family homes, $20 million on the water, big brick facades, long driveways, Miami,
Penthouses.
on the water, glass buildings, 168 unit towers in the city. This was different. This was different. And, you were dealing with a different buyer and a different product. I mean, I'd say this was one of your first, suburb condo projects outside of the city, was it not?
Yeah, no, you're right. It definitely was.
So what were some things that, what are elements that you had to bring into the design that really, helped shape the building to what it was? Was it light fixtures? Was it the pendants? What was it?
Yeah, I think it was, an interesting challenge to switch from such a contemporary, flashy product, which I think
And that
so
is
much-
one of the biggest things. People get nervous about working with designers because you're like, oh my God, she's modern, she's contemporary, this is what she is, she's classic, she's this. This isn't a typical,
No, this isn't our typical stroke.
this isn't your typical stroke.
Yeah.
But you were able to pivot.
Yeah,
That's insane.
While
That's amazing
also
to me.
knowing that a new price threshold was being established
Right.
in a building that Newton has never seen.
So back to the elements.
I think it's so important to be able to design without an ego, and I think so much of that is really asking yourself what does the project need. And sometimes we know what the project needs, and the answer is, hey, we're not the right fit for you. Like there's some things we simply can't do. Like I can't do a traditional project, like a truly traditional one, because I don't know that language, that detailing, those kind of strokes are something I'm not familiar with. And I'll tell people, hey, I can refer you to an amazing restoration architect who can restore this to its true beauty. In this project, when Manny came to us and told us, one of the most important conversations we have is that early conversation with you guys, when we sit down and we say, okay, like, what's the deal? Who is the buyer? What do you need? What has been successful in previous projects? What was not successful? What are we working with? And in that conversation, we saw that there was an opportunity to create a market for something, to architecturally create a market for something that didn't yet exist. And that answer, and when we asked ourselves, what is the history of Newton? Who is the buyer that's going to be coming in here from 3 years from now? It was really, we thought that we did have the answer to the question. We thought that we could create a country escape from, the busy Boston lifestyle and create something that, that would work. And it was different, but it was fun to do. I think it's always, it's fun to put on, a different hat sometimes and do something completely different than what you do every single day.
Do you think
Linda convinced some buyers to buy condos in Newton instead of going to the city.
I mean, we hear the word timeless a lot. I definitely think some of the elements you brought into these units are timeless.
Yeah.
And I think they're built to last.
They
I mean,
are.
they're built
They
to
are.
last.
Absolutely.
Did you, because you got out of your comfort zone, which
Yeah.
we talk about this all the time, guys, all of us.
Yeah.
You're owning a business. We're all business owners here. We're all, CEOs of everything we do. like getting uncomfortable is very hard. You know, you got uncomfortable. This was your biggest project, Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Linda, you changed the way you normally do things. The aesthetic was not your typical design.
Right.
You got uncomfortable. Did you learn anything?
Yeah, you know.
Did you learn anything about what you did differently?
Of course, you know, I think if there's ever a project where we're not learning, then we're not doing something right. You know, for us, mistakes are so important. Struggle is so important. The things you do wrong are so important. Here, I think we learned a lot of things. I think that we learned, you know, every project is so unique. I think some of the things that we learned here were, you know, for one, the varying typologies is a struggle. It always is. You know, a lot of times we'll, you know, design one unit through and through to the very end, and we'll know everything that's going into that one unit, and then, you know, we'll count on the trades or the architect and other people to replicate our design. Here it was difficult because while we did narrow down our typologies, there were some typologies that we'd walk into and I'd be like, oh boy, like let's make
I
sure
remember
that
you
we-"
called me a couple
I said,
times.
Oh, I did not know that wall was going to be there. you
Let's
know?
be real. I mean, I remember.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, we're gonna put everything
No,
out
absolutely.
there. We're gonna.
Why not?
This
Of
is just
course.
real. I remember Linda calling me one day, and she's like, "Listen, I spoke to Manny. You know, Manny doesn't seem so worried about it. Like he says everything's gonna be good. But I figured I'm gonna call you. I'm the worrier. I'm the crazy one. You called me and you go, I just was walking through.
Yeah.
I'm nervous. We're in trouble.
Yeah.
And this is a
It's
designer.
true.
You're getting paid regardless, right?
100%, Absolutely.
You're getting paid regardless.
Yeah, no, my
Pass or
anxiety-
fail.
Yeah, no, I have anxiety that lives
This
with
is why you are who you are. This is why you're successful. But you called me. It was a Friday, I remember.
me. Oh yeah, I was worried.
You were like, you know, Steve and Brian are on a boat. Steve's golfing. I'm on site.
I don't get on boats.
Steve's golfing in the
Yes,
cave.
that's fair.
Brian's on a boat. I'm walking through these units, and
I think it was a framing issue.
this
It was a
is
framing
a
issue.
big
It was a framing
problem.
issue,
With so it was a
Yeah,
framing issue.
absolutely.
Totally.
Yeah.
And once again, so you're not just a designer putting in the beautiful
No.
lights, doing the floors, the colors. You know construction.
No.
You've built your own homes. You know architecture. How did that work? Like when you were
know-
trying to deliver a message
Was
because
it
you
like
care.
a closet
I mean,
not
you
framed
guys-
in the floor plan? or
Yeah,
something?
there was. I mean, you guys
swinging
do
away.
this. You guys,
Steve's like, it's a closet.
No problem.
It's a closet.
you guys are going to know how this is too. Like, we can't take everything, right? So we can only choose what we can. You know, the projects that we invest in ourselves in, we want to know that they're going to succeed. You know, and we are so intimately invested. Like, we can really take probably 5 projects a year max, because these are big projects. They're huge, hands-on things. And so when we choose one, we ask, like, is this team going to succeed? You know, that's the first question. Are we gonna learn something? Is this team going to succeed? Is this a high visibility project? Like, those are kind of the factors that we weigh in. You know, and when you come onto site, and of course, in every site there's bumps along the way. Absolutely, when you're walking a site and you see something that is not where it needs to be, you know, it is like a mini.
But you're
heart
not. You're
attack.
gonna give them the feedback, and you're
You
gonna
know?
let them know.
Oh, I called them
Yeah.
both right
Yeah.
away. I said to them,
No
I
problem.
said, I
And then
don't
she
know.
called you.
And,
Yeah.
then when
No
they were
problem.
relaxed, I called you. When you were relaxed, then I called
Then it was
George.
like, ah!
Right, exactly.
And I said something. I said, you know, I mean, I think, you know, in full transparency, I said is going to go down.
Yeah.
one way or
When the
another.
buyer sees
Somebody
this
has to
closet
fix
on
it.
this floor plan,
Yep.
and
Absolutely.
This is gonna be bad.
Right.
No, because also, like, you know,
we fixed it.
Right.
Yeah.
And we all live in a world where, you know, paper has to reflect reality.
Correct.
You know, and as you guys know, as the final testament, paper has to reflect reality.
Totally.
You know,
Yeah.
all of us cover, you know, all of us do a very well detailed job, and a lot of it is also about the course correction along the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this was.
Thanks for exposing us, George.
It's all good. Hey, listen.
We're gonna need
Not
a shot
every,
of tequila.
not
after
everything's
this.
sunshine and rainbows.
No, it's,
No, it's
listen,
not.
it's once again,
not.
guys. We could talk.
By the way,
about,
the framing is great in the building.
we could talk about this for hours and hours and
Of
hours.
course.
You know, it's bottom line is if you assemble a great team,
For sure.
and you guys are all aligned, we can all get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We can all get comfortable being uncomfortable, making sure we're bringing up issues.
Yep.
Because, and there were a lot of, I don't say mistakes, I say lessons in disguise.
Absolutely.
You and I, Steve, spoke in the beginning
Yep.
about one basic lesson in disguise that you learned when you were acquiring the property that you won't do on the next
Sure.
acquisition. Linda, you've learned different things throughout
sure.
this process, getting uncomfortable. Manny, first project we've done together in Newton, this size.
Yep.
You know, not many of them. We had to get uncomfortable. And I don't think that this project would have been successful if either one of us wasn't in the picture. And I think that just shows, you know, the group teamwork aspect of it, filling in the voids. That's the point of a team. That's why you have different, you know, players, different positions, different coaches. So, you know, I want to thank you guys all for, you know, trusting Manny and I in this building and all the other business we've done together. I think that, you know, the fact that we were able to do this in one of the toughest markets, as I mentioned, in the last 20, 30 years, is a testament to the product itself. The product and the team here. The consistent and persistence that went into this project. The relentless work ethic from a sales team with Roy to marketing to the design. It was sleepless nights, and I think that it's a high risk, high reward life we live in. No pain, no gain, plain and simple. We're 95% sold. We have 1 unit left.
While we're shooting this, we have 1 unit left.
By the time anyone
it's
sees
released,
this.
who knows if it
Yeah,
will still be.
No
I think
pressure.
Roy's working on a deal right now,
I
actually.
love that. Good to know.
For people looking to
Yeah.
meet you, Steve, get to know you, send you some projects.
Sure.
How do they plug
Yeah.
you? Where do they find you?
Alpine Property Group LLC.com and Instagram at Alpine Property Group.
Great.
Perfect. If you guys really want to get in touch with Steve, call me.
Yeah.
We charge a little referral fee. Linda, how do people find you?
Very similar. We have a website, www.zarifidesign.com, and we're on Instagram at Linda Zarifi Design.
Love that.
I'm sure you've seen us all,
Yeah.
George and I, on Instagram.
He's just
Plenty
got the
of times.
simplest Manny Sarkis on Instagram. That's his plug. I have a junior at the end, George Sarkis Jr. Check out sarkisboston.com, and thank you all for watching another episode of Sarkis Unlocked. Thanks, guys.
Thank
guys.
you
Appreciate it,
guys.
guys.
Thank you.